Have you ever wondered if there's a single sentence that could flip the emotional switch inside a man and make him see you in a way he's never seen anyone before? The truth is, 99.9% of men can't resist you when you say something that speaks directly to both his ego and his heart. It's not about playing games, being overly mysterious, or trying too hard to impress. It's about knowing exactly what triggers that deep emotional response that makes him feel wanted, seen, and special without losing your self-respect. Imagine saying something playful and unexpected that mixes vulnerability with confidence. Something like, "You're trouble, but I like it." Or letting your guard down just enough to make him lean in emotionally. When you say, "I feel strangely safe around you, like I can be myself." These aren't just words. They're emotional hooks that make a man chase your validation, crave your attention, and remember you long after the conversation ends. In this video, you'll discover the exact phrases that tap into his psychological triggers: vulnerability, ego boost, playful challenge, emotional safety, and that irresistible sense of being emotionally chosen. Say the right thing at the right time and watch how fast he gets hooked on you. We often think that attraction is built solely on being the most confident, put together, unshakable version of ourselves. We walk into a room, chest out, smile on, rehearsed lines ready, hoping that projecting complete self-assurance will make someone fall for us. But here's the truth that most people miss. What actually makes someone lean in, what makes them feel something deep and real, is when you show them a crack in that armor. It's when you drop the act just for a second and let something vulnerable slip through. That's the moment that stays with them. When you say something like, "You make me nervous," in the best way, you're not just giving them words, you're giving them a glimpse of the real you, the side that isn't performing, the side that feels. And that emotional honesty is like oxygen in a world full of people playing it cool. Most people are too busy trying to look unaffected, trying to hold on to the upper hand, trying to be the one who cares less. But when you're the one willing to take that emotional risk, when you're willing to show that someone actually gets to you, it sends shockwaves through the interaction. Think about it. Every guy out there has met people who flirt by script, people who compliment just enough to stay safe, people who laugh but never let their guard down. And then suddenly, there's you, saying something completely unscripted, something that makes him stop in his tracks because it's so rare to hear. You're showing him that this moment is affecting you in real time, that he has an impact on you. And let me tell you, very few people have the courage to do that. The magic here is that vulnerability doesn't scream desperation. It whispers authenticity. And that difference is huge. When you say, "You make me nervous," it doesn't mean I'm desperate for your attention. It means I like you enough that I'm feeling something even when I wasn't expecting to. That's attractive. That's human. And that's something people crave more than another round of witty banter. There's this belief that vulnerability equals weakness, that if you admit to being affected by someone, you're handing over all your power. But emotional honesty, when it comes from a place of self-respect, is actually one of the most powerful things you can offer. It shows that you're strong enough to own your feelings. You're not pretending, you're not playing games, you're showing up as you are with all your messy, real, human emotions. And that's the kind of energy that makes people want to step closer, not pull away. And the funny thing is, when you take that leap, when you offer that little glimpse of vulnerability, it gives the other person permission to drop their guard too. You're telling them without saying it outright that this is a space where real connection can happen, where it's safe to feel something. You'd be surprised how many men spend their lives putting on their own version of armor, hiding behind jokes, deflecting with charm, keeping things surface level, because they're afraid of being the one who feels more. But when you show that you're feeling something, that you're affected, that you're a little nervous, but willing to admit it anyway, you create a new dynamic where he doesn't have to keep pretending either. Suddenly, the conversation changes. The mood shifts. He's not just talking to another person going through the motions. He's talking to someone who's actually here in this moment, fully present and emotionally engaged. And that's the kind of moment that people replay in their minds later. That's the moment that makes someone wonder about you after you leave. That's the moment that makes him smile when he thinks back to it, long after the conversation ends. So if you've been holding back, if you've been waiting for the perfect time to say something real, don't overthink it. That flutter in your stomach, that's not something to suppress. That's the magic. That's the exact thing that makes you irresistible in ways you can't script or fake. Because while confidence will catch someone's attention, vulnerability is what makes them stay. So often, we spend our energy trying to seem unaffected. We think that if we play it cool, if we appear detached, we'll somehow become more attractive. We hold back our smiles, we dilute our compliments, and we hide the real impact someone is having on us. But the truth is, what actually pulls someone in, what actually makes a person feel desired and chosen, is when we show just enough vulnerability to let them know they've gotten under our skin. There's something powerful about taking playful ownership of your desire. I'm not talking about pouring your heart out in a dramatic confession. I'm talking about those moments when you let a little crack appear in your carefully controlled exterior, the kind of crack that makes him think, wait, she actually likes me, and she's not afraid to let me know it. You see, most people these days are terrified of giving the other person too much power. We're told that if we show interest, we lose leverage, that showing our cards makes us needy or desperate. But this isn't about neediness. This is about confidence, real, authentic confidence, the kind that allows you to say, with a playful smile, I wasn't planning on liking you this much, but here we are. When you say something like that, you're not begging for attention, you're not chasing, you're not throwing yourself at him. What you're doing is owning your feelings. You're making it clear that you're self-aware, that you know how you feel, and that you're bold enough to say it. That's magnetic. Think about what that does psychologically to the person hearing it. It creates this beautiful blend of curiosity and flattery. He starts wondering, what is it about me that's making her feel this way? Suddenly, he's invested. He's engaged. He feels chosen, but he also feels like there's still a bit of mystery. After all, you weren't planning on liking him. This wasn't inevitable. This wasn't something that was going to happen with just anyone. He's the exception. And it's that feeling, that sense that he's unexpectedly special to you, that makes him want more. When you take playful ownership of your feelings, you're giving him a green light without completely giving away the entire roadmap. It's like saying, I like you, but let's see what you do with that. You're not promising him the world, you're simply acknowledging that he's made an impact. And that in itself is irresistible. There's also an element of emotional maturity in this approach, because when you're able to admit you're enjoying someone's company more than you expected, when you're able to lean into that moment without fear, it tells him that you're emotionally grounded, that you're not afraid of feelings, that you're not scared of connection. And for a guy who's used to women playing games, this is refreshing. It's like suddenly breathing in fresh air after being stuck in a room with recycled conversations and surface-level flirtation. You become the person who stands out, the person who isn't afraid to say, you know what, I'm enjoying this, but here's the beautiful part. You still get to keep your standards. Just because you've admitted that you're feeling something doesn't mean you're going to tolerate bad behavior. It doesn't mean you're lowering your expectations. It simply means you're human and you're strong enough to embrace that humanity. This is where real emotional connection begins. Because when you show up with honesty, you invite honesty in return. When you express that spark of interest without fear, you create space for him to lean in too. And more often than not, he will. Because men are drawn to women who are unapologetically themselves. Women who know how they feel and aren't afraid to show it, but who also know they deserve to be pursued, respected, and cherished in return. So the next time you catch yourself smiling a little too much after a joke he makes, or feeling that flutter in your stomach when he walks into the room, don't shut it down. Let it show. Let it play at the corner of your smile. And when the moment's right, lean in just enough to say, I wasn't planning on liking you this much, but here we are. You know what's funny? People spend so much time trying to be liked, trying to impress, trying to come across as agreeable, thinking that's the secret to being irresistible. But if you really want to grab a man's attention, if you want to say something that stops him mid-thought, makes his heart skip, and makes him replay your words over and over in his head, you have to master the art of combining two powerful elements, a compliment and a challenge. It's that unexpected mix that hooks him. Think about it. Most compliments fall flat because they're predictable. He's heard them before. You're cute, you're funny, you're charming. Sure, they're nice, but do they leave a mark? Not really. They don't create emotional tension. They don't make him curious. They don't make him wonder what you're really thinking. But when you throw in that little twist, when you give him a compliment wrapped inside a playful challenge, now you're playing a whole different game. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you're talking to him. The conversation's flowing. There's chemistry in the air. And you lean in and say, with a cheeky smile, "You're trouble, but the kind I'm weirdly into." Do you see what that does? In one sentence, you're telling him that you're attracted, but you're also holding your ground. You're saying, "You've caught my attention, but I'm not giving myself away that easily." There's mystery there. There's a little tease. It puts him on edge in the best way, because now he's not just sitting there thinking, "Ooh, she likes me." He's wondering, wait, what does she mean by that? Am I really trouble? How far can I push this? How much does she actually like me? Is she resisting me, or is she playing with me? That's the kind of thought spiral you want to put him in. This works because it creates emotional friction. Attraction needs friction. It thrives on uncertainty mixed with reward. If something feels too easy, too safe, too available, it gets boring quickly. But if you create a tiny bit of playful resistance, just enough to make him lean in, to make him want to prove himself to you, that's when he starts investing emotionally. And let's be clear here, this isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about being confident enough to show your standards while still letting him know you're enjoying his company. You're saying, "I like you, but I'm still paying attention. I'm still watching how you show up." That's incredibly attractive. Sometimes it's not even about the exact words. It's about your delivery, the sparkle in your eye when you say it. When you turn, you sparkle. Your eyes get it. The slight pause before you let the compliment land. The playful tone that tells him you're in control of your own feelings, even as you're letting him know he's having an effect on you. You're not just giving him validation, you're giving him a puzzle to solve. And trust me, men love puzzles when it comes to attraction. If you want to take it even further, you can tailor the compliment challenge combo to something specific about him. Let's say he's been flirting in a way that's a little overconfident. That's your moment to lean in and say, "You really think you've got me figured out, don't you?" And then smile as if you know something he doesn't. That makes him question his own assumptions. It makes him want to earn your interest, not just assume he already has it. Or let's say he's told you something impressive about himself. Maybe he's bragging about his job or how many women usually chase him. That's when you hit him with, "Oh, you're used to getting your way, aren't you? Good thing I'm not that easy." It teases his ego while showing that you're not just another person feeding it. It's that balance of making him feel desired but not entitled to your affection that creates real chemistry. You're giving him just enough to feel encouraged, but keeping enough back that he knows he has to bring more than surface charm to win you over. And the truth is, when you show that mix of playfulness and high standards, you're not just making him want you physically, you're inviting him into an emotional experience. You're making him feel something different, something electric, something challenging. And the human brain craves challenge, especially when it comes to attraction. So next time you're tempted to give a compliment that sounds like every other thing he's heard before, pause, smile, and find a way to lace it with just enough challenge that it makes him lean in a little closer, wondering what it's going to take to really win you over. You know, one of the biggest psychological triggers that makes a man sit up, pay attention, and start seeing you differently is when you make him feel like he stands out from the crowd. Think about it. Most guys are used to getting general compliments or surface level attention. They hear things like, "You're cute," or "You're funny," but those are things they've probably heard a dozen times from other women. It doesn't make them feel special. It doesn't stick in their mind. It certainly doesn't keep them awake at night replaying the moment in their head. What really hooks a man on a deeper emotional level is when you say something that makes him feel like he's unique in your eyes. When you give him the sense that among all the people you could have chosen, you've noticed something in him that feels rare, different, something that sets him apart from the rest. And when you do that, you create this psychological shift in him where he starts to value your opinion more. He starts wanting to live up to that image you've just planted in his mind. Imagine you're on a date and halfway through the conversation, you lean in a little and say, "You know, you're not like most guys I meet." Now, notice how that's vague enough to create curiosity, but specific enough to make him feel exceptional. It leaves him wondering, wait, why? What does she mean by that? It forces him to fill in the blanks in his own mind. And in doing that, he starts playing back everything he's said and done around you so far, trying to figure out what it is that makes him different in your eyes. And that's the beauty of it. You're not giving him all the answers. You're giving him just enough to feel special, but you're also creating this playful mystery where he's now eager to dig deeper and earn more of your attention. It makes him lean in, both physically and emotionally. He wants to know what part of him has caught your eye in a way other women haven't noticed. Now, here's where it gets even more powerful. Once you've planted that seed, you can personalize it just a little bit more. Maybe after he responds with something like, "Oh yeah, how so?" you smile and say, "It's hard to explain. You just carry yourself differently. There's a confidence about you, but it's not in your face. It's just easy to be around." Or maybe you say, "There's something grounded about you." Like you actually listen instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. See what that does? It's not over-the-top praise. It's specific, authentic, And it focuses on qualities most men wish they were recognized for, but rarely are. Things like emotional maturity, depth, attentiveness, or that quiet confidence that doesn't need to be loud to be noticed. And here's the other layer to this. When you make a man feel like he's different, he often feels like a mask, like he's a mask, like he's a mask. If you force feed him food when you make a man feel like he's different, you automatically position yourself as someone who has standards. It shows that you're not impressed by just anyone, that you've seen enough to know what's rare, what's real, and what's worth your time. That creates this healthy pressure in him to rise to the occasion, to show you even more of the sides of him that fit that special image you've already hinted at. Suddenly, he's thinking, she sees something in me. I want to prove her right. He'll want to keep showing up as that unique, grounded, confident guy you've just described. And because you weren't trying too hard, because you delivered that line with lightness and sincerity, it lands perfectly without feeling manipulative or forced. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to feel chosen? When you're able to subtly show a guy that out of all the people you could have given your energy to, you've chosen him because he's different in a way that matters to you. That's when the game changes. That's when you stop being just another person he's talking to and start being the woman he can't stop thinking about. You know, one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to spark attraction is playing it too safe. They overthink every word, trying to be polite, charming, agreeable, and in the process, they become forgettable. Attraction doesn't live in safety. It lives in tension. It lives in unpredictability. And one of the most underrated ways to create that electric tension is through playful reverse psychology. Let me explain. When you say something like, I shouldn't even be talking to you right now, you're exactly my type of mistake, you're doing something incredibly powerful on a psychological level. You're giving them a compliment, but you're packaging it inside a challenge. You're giving them access, but at the same time, you're making it clear that they are walking a very thin line between being wanted and being trouble. This is where most people get it wrong. They either lean too far into being sweet and available, making the person feel like they already have them figured out, or they go too far in the other direction, playing hard to get to the point that they just come off cold or uninterested. What you're doing with this kind of line is creating a perfect blend of both worlds. By telling someone they're your type of mistake, you're feeding their ego just enough to make them feel special, while at the same time making them wonder, wait, why am I a mistake? What do you mean by that? Are you actually into me or not? That tiny bit of confusion, that mental itch, they suddenly want to scratch. That's the beginning of real attraction. Humans are wired to chase emotional clarity when it feels just out of reach. When you give them 90% of the answer but leave that last 10% dangling like a carrot, they'll lean in, they'll invest more, they'll try harder to win you over because deep down, they want to resolve the ambiguity. And here's what makes this approach even more effective. It shifts the power dynamic in the most playful way. Instead of you being the one wondering if they like you, they wondering if they like you. They're suddenly wondering what you're thinking. Are you genuinely into them? Are you being serious? Are you just flirting? The best part? It doesn't matter. What matters is that now they're the one obsessing over how to get closer to you. Also, let's not forget the emotional story you're subtly telling about yourself when you say something like this. You're signaling that you've been through this before. You're signaling that you've been through this before. You've met people who seemed like a good idea but weren't. You've learned from your experiences. You're not someone who just falls blindly for every person who shows a bit of charm. You're self-aware, you're selective, and yet they've managed to catch your attention anyway. That feels like a win to them. What you're doing here is making them feel like they've already broken through one of your walls, that you had standards, boundaries, and yet somehow they've slipped through. That alone makes them want to prove they're worth the risk. They want to be the exception to your rule. Now, let's talk about delivery, because words are only half the equation. The real magic comes from how you say it. You need to pair this kind of playful reverse psychology with the right tone. Say it with a teasing smile, a slight laugh. Let there be that glimmer in your eye that says, you're in on the joke. This isn't about being mean. It's about being magnetic, fun, light, playful. You're not actually warning them off, you're inviting them in, but making them work just a little for it. And watch how quickly the energy shifts when you do this. Suddenly, they're leaning in closer. They're laughing, but also trying to read between the lines. They're looking for clues. Does she mean that? Am I really her type of mistake? Or is she just messing with me? And right there, that's where the real connection builds. Because when two people are laughing together, teasing each other, dancing on that fine line between flirtation and honesty, that's when walls come down. That's when moments become memorable. That's when you stop being just another person they met and start becoming the person they can't stop thinking about after they walk away. So the next time you find yourself overthinking what to say, remember this. You don't need to give them a perfect, polished version of yourself. You don't need to be overly sweet or distant. All you need is that little spark of playful mischief. That sentence that makes them wonder, that keeps them smiling on the drive home and replaying the moment in their head later that night. You know, we often spend so much time focusing on how to come across as interesting, desirable, fun, flirty, all the external things we think will make someone want us more. But sometimes the most irresistible moments happen when you say something that speaks straight to the heart, something that bypasses logic, bypasses ego, and goes right to the emotional core of the person in front of you. And one of the most powerful things you can ever say to a man is something that makes him feel emotionally chosen. There's something incredibly disarming about hearing someone say, I feel strangely safe around you. Like I can just be myself. That sentence is simple, but it's packed with emotional triggers that most people aren't even aware of. When a man hears that, it taps into something primal in him. It tells him that in a world where everyone wears masks, where people put on fronts, where connection often feels surface level, with him, it feels different. It feels real. And that's something he won't forget. You see, men walk through life constantly being told to be strong, to have it together, to be the provider, the protector, the stoic one. Even the most confident man, even the one who seems like he has the world wrapped around his finger, is secretly starving for a place where he feels emotionally safe, where he's not being judged, where he's not being evaluated for what he has, what he looks like, or what game he's playing. He wants to feel like there's one person in the world who sees the human underneath all of that. When you say, I feel safe around you, you're giving him that rare experience. And here's the magic part. In that moment, without even realizing it, he starts to crave being that safe space for you over and over again. It makes him want to protect you, show up for you, and keep being the person who gets to see that version of you. And ironically, while you're making him feel like your safe person, he's starting to emotionally anchor to you as his. This kind of statement also signals emotional intelligence. Despite some of this sounding like an emotional intelligence, it tells him that you're in tune with your feelings, that you're not afraid to share vulnerability, but you're doing it in a way that feels warm and authentic, not heavy or needy. There's a world of difference between emotional vulnerability and emotional dumping. This is the good kind. It's the kind that feels like an invitation, not a burden. And here's something most people miss. By expressing how he makes you feel, you're also making him feel validated as a man. You're confirming that he's doing something right without him having to guess. Most men walk around guessing how they're doing in a relationship. They're trying to read between the lines. They don't always know if they're coming across the way they hope to. When you say something like this, it's like handing him a roadmap that says, whatever you're doing right now, keep doing it. But here's where it gets even better. It triggers an emotional feedback loop. When you tell him you feel safe around him, he'll naturally want to reinforce that feeling in you. He'll start making choices, even subconsciously, that align with the person you now see him as. He'll become more emotionally available, more protective, more tuned in. Why? Because no one wants to lose the feeling of being seen in that way. Think about it. When was the last time someone made you feel emotionally safe? It's rare, right? And when it happens, it's unforgettable. It creates a kind of imprint that lingers long after the words have been said. That's what you're doing for him. You're giving him a rare emotional high, one that makes him look at you differently, one that makes him think about you long after the conversation ends, one that has him smiling to himself at random moments during the day, replaying the words in his head. Now, of course, the timing matters. This isn't something you say 2 minutes into meeting someone. It's the kind of thing you say when there's been a moment, a connection, even a small one. Maybe you've just shared a laugh, or he's opened up about something real, or there's been this subtle shift where the conversation drops into a deeper place. That's when you lean in, not physically, but emotionally. Softly, casually, almost like you didn't plan to say it, but it just came out because it felt right. That's how it lands best. And the beauty of this is, you're not just saying it for him, you're saying it because it's true. Because somewhere in that moment, you actually did feel safe. You did feel like you could be yourself. And the honesty of that, that's what makes it so powerful. So the next time you're with someone who's making you feel something real, don't be afraid to let him know. Sometimes the most irresistible thing you can say is simply the truth.